Welcome to Faith Fondue, a new podcast featuring me, author and speaker Haley DeMaria, and teacher and blogger Ann Strickers. Faith Fondue will feature a melting pot of topics, ignited by a flame, our faith, and guided by the Holy Spirit. Each week will feature a theme, and the theme for this week's episode is Mardi Gras, Fat Tuesday, and Lent. Hello, Ann. Well, this Sunday we celebrated the 6th Sunday in Ordinary Time. Once again, there is nothing ordinary about this week. There's so much going on that starts celebratory with Mardi Gras. It gets really gluttonous for some people with Fat Tuesday. And then, again, some of us will go cold turkey with our vices on Ash Wednesday, the beginning of Lent. So we have a lot to talk about today. How are you?
I was laughing, Haley, because I was thinking about Ash Wednesday, and maybe you should have said going cold tofu, because Ash Wednesday, I know, bad joke. Ash Wednesday is a day of fasting and abstinence. So for our listeners, just a reminder, no meat. And we don't eat meat because we're to remind ourselves to be in solidarity with the poor, because meat is usually associated with people and places in the world that have the ability to really choose what they eat, and meat traditionally costs a little more. So even though fish is a delicacy in many places, not where Jesus lived. And so just a reminder on that. And then, it's 2 small meals and 1 regular meal. I don't know how you do typically on Ash Wednesday or Good Friday, the 2 days where we're supposed to fast, Haley, but I find them to be a challenge.
So I don't. Actually, I don't know if I have ever had 3 what people would consider full meals. I think that's just too much food for me. At least in my post-swimming days. Certainly when I was swimming, we could eat a lot. But no, in fact, the more I think about it, probably the harder it is during the day. But if I just go on through my normal day, I just try to have a couple snacks and then we'll have dinner. But I have menu planned for this week for dinner, and thank you for the reminder, because we were going to have chicken tiki masala on Wednesday night, and now we're not.
I don't know if there's tofu masala. I don't know if that works. But...
it would not work in my house. It might work for me, but maybe not for everybody else.
Right. So but Ash Wednesday is an important day, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But before we do, in terms of the flame and what's hot this week, last week, I really enjoyed talking about our B-list holidays, our super holidays for the month of February, and the Super Bowl. As it's funny, I really did hear somebody on the radio and somebody informally in conversation say, it's just too bad this Monday after the Super Bowl isn't a national holiday. So it's obviously on people's minds, right, that it could be. But tomorrow is a national holiday, President's Day. We're observing that. And it's also my birthday, which is interesting only in that 2 things. One, my father is born on May 30th. I think Memorial Day is, I don't know, super/B list day. And it was always observed on May 30th. And it wasn't until about 30 years ago that it was moved to that last, that certain Monday in May. But much like Veterans Day, it used to be an actual day. So he said it was wonderful growing up having your birthday as a national holiday. And I thought, well, my birthday is a national holiday tomorrow, which doesn't really mean as much to me in that sense of needing a holiday. But my mother said to me, she said, I've always thought your birthday was on the 16th. And I was like horrified.
That must have been a long labor for her to think it was going to the next day.
No, I was the quickest of any, 2 hours. And I just thought, what mother forgets her child's birthday? I'm going to milk this for all it's worth. But at any rate, the Super Bowl has spawned, continued to spawn the GOAT debate, the greatest of all time, right? About Tom Brady. And it is remarkable at 43 that he led his team to a 7th title. And so, for many people, this confirmed that he was the GOAT.
Well, and especially the way he did it, right? It wasn't like he won his 7th title with, the Patriots and that whole, myth of a legendary team. Yeah, he left and went to a team that hadn't been in the playoffs and hadn't really been doing very well, and took them to a Super Bowl win. So it does add they make a good argument.
Absolutely. And I want to appreciate his greatness. I do. I think it is inspiring, and I'm not going to take that away from him. But in terms of the conversation that people are having, they'll talk about Michael Jordan and even LeBron James, who has 4 titles. And I really think you're a history major, so offers perspective and context. And I, heard this week Yogi Berra won 10 World Series titles. Now the Yankees that was, to your point, like he was with one team, but they were so dominant. And then Bill Russell, who turned 87 on Friday, he kind of just chimed in and he's like, whoa, 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 GOAT. It needs to be known. He has
Hold my beer. Yeah.
yeah, 11 titles. And he, with the Celtics, in 13 seasons, he was the MVP of the league 5 times. He was a 12-time All-Star. He had 2 national titles with the University of San Francisco and an Olympic gold medal. So, that to me, that is a really hard, I know it's a different sport, but talk about the GOAT. And I want to appreciate this GOAT because he has been involved in a really creative ad campaign for COVID-19. So Bill Russell was known for his great defense, and he is a proponent of getting the vaccine. And he said, the only shot I won't be blocking is this one. So happy birthday, Mr. Russell. I love your essay. Success is a journey, not a destination, about American sports and race relations and justice. It's a great essay for anyone to read. And tip our hat to him for his goatness.
So, and you had mentioned, Anne, when we were talking in our notes here, why isn't there more energy about talking about who the female GOAT is? So we may have to add that as one of our future topics, is maybe a whole podcast on a debate of who is the GOAT, both male and female. It would be kind of fun. I'm kind of with Bill Russell here. Just an interesting side bit. We watched the Michael Jordan series documentary, like I think most people did during quarantine. And my kids have heard his name. They are big NBA watchers, so they're very familiar with what's going on, currently in the NBA. And of course, they've heard of Michael Jordan, and they've heard the whole debate between Michael and LeBron and blah, blah, blah. And after watching the Jordan documentary, they both were like, oh, it's not even close. So even this kind of next generation that's grown up with LeBron James, and they really thought he was the GOAT when they saw Michael Jordan. Now, that was a Michael Jordan documentary told through his lens. But anyway, that would be a fun topic to dive into at future times.
And I'd like to have it among like the Saints,
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, there's really a contest after Our Lady, Notre Dame.
But, right. Okay. I'm adding that to our list.
Okay.
So tell me about Super Bowl ads. What did you like, not like?
I don't know if you caught them and what your house was like, but I was with a friend and her husband. That was really special because just haven't really done that, and they were comfortable with it, and I was too. And you're chatting, but then this ad comes on for Cheetos, and it featured Shaggy, the musician, Ashton Kutcher, and his wife Mila. Is it Kunis? Is that Kunis?
I think so. Kunis. Yeah.
Okay. People seem to know. I'm not great on celebrities. I'm a little bit familiar with her, but I knew they were married. So the bottom line is that they play on Shaggy's song "Wasn't Me" because there's, when you eat Cheetos, you get the cheese all over your hands. And I always joke, this is a Jeopardy clue: things that don't exist in nature. And the answer is, what is the color of Cheetos? Right? It's that bright orange. And a friend and I were talking about just prior to this how good Cheetos are. They're just so good. And yet they offer no nutritional value.
Zero.
Right? If sodium was a nutritional value, which it might be for retaining water, but other than that, and last week we talked about what do you take in with your eyes and being discerning about that. And with Cheetos, I have to ask myself, I enjoy them, but I'm not going to overdo it because, again, what am I taking in? So, we were trying to make the analogy in the spiritual life. Like you cannot have Cheetos every day, or you could, but you got to be mindful of what we take in. And so as much as we want Cheetos, it's something, maybe for a Super Bowl snack.
It's perfect for a Super Bowl snack, especially when they're playing such great commercials like that.
Sure.
Yeah, just a catchy song and, catchy sticky fingers you get when you eat them.
And now we send pictures of Cheetos to each other all the time. And it's pretty funny because and I'll link this in the show notes. There's a picture of these women sitting in their wheelchair in a nursing home. And the headline, talks about, it says, inside a nursing home after vaccination, joy, relief, and game night. And I'm thinking, gosh, for these people, I mean, they were the most isolated, right? The most removed from family and whatnot. They had to be. And now they're back and, hopefully safe. And this woman in the front is clutching, I'm not joking, a plastic bin. It's like a jug of Cheetos.
That's amazing.
So enjoy. I'll post that, and I hope she enjoys those Cheetos and the company.
Right, and sharing them because she doesn't need to eat that whole container by herself.
No, yeah, maybe it's safe to share them. I don't want to speak for everybody in the facility, but.
So the winning Super Bowl ad in our house was the Universal streaming ads, where no, it wasn't Universal. Sorry, it was Paramount, where they were climbing the mountain, and it was a series of them, and they were all cumulative. Where you saw like different, Beavis and Butthead and different characters from all these different movies and TV shows to be streaming for. Clearly, it wasn't that good of an ad because I said it was for Universal and couldn't remember what it was for. But the Paramount streaming where they all end up on the top of the mountain. So, my kids and husband who like that kind of pop culture type stuff. They knew who everybody was. I didn't, but we really liked. I like those cumulative ads that tell a story over time. Those are kind of just clever and fun. Yeah. And then the Cheetos one, because I just love that song. It just makes me laugh.
It is pretty good. And then was it hot? I don't think it was hot there this week. There's nothing hot in Annapolis. I heard it was.
No, when we are talking about what's hot this week, it is freezing. I mean, we've had a couple of ice storms. It's really pretty because everything is coated in ice. So like every branch and every blade of grass is just crystallized with ice. So it is really pretty. No, it's freezing. So we spent a lot of time inside. We had a couple days off of school because you can't drive on those icy roads. And it was, we're in Mardi Gras season. And, for better or worse, when you're stuck at home inside on a snow day, I spent more time than I probably should have, or anybody needs to, on social media. And, I just started seeing all these posts about the lack of Mardi Gras and, what friends of mine who live in New Orleans, for whom this is, a 6-week event, they're really feeling the loss. I have a couple of friends who are involved in a very big organization, and it's social, it's charitable, it's year round, but it's the crew of muses, and they spend months planning their float and the theme, and actually I should say floats because they have several floats. And then their whole thing is these shoes, and I'll post and attach pictures to this, but they're pumps, they buy women's shoes, high heels, and they decorate them like you can't imagine, with beads and sequins and plumes. And I mean, they're just really amazing. And they throw them to the crowds off the floats. And it's like a hot ticket item to be the recipient and catch one of these shoes. So, one of my friends posted, she said, I know we've got bigger problems in the world, but I'll tell you, I'm really feeling the weight of this loss right now. They're really, not having Mardi Gras, and we've all lost things. And certainly, the loss of a big old party probably doesn't seem like a major loss. But in New Orleans, it's charitable, it's social, it's the loss of tourism dollars for people coming in. They're really missing it this year. But like with everything, where there's loss, there's opportunity. And they're doing some really neat things down there. Instead of having the parades, they are decorating their homes. So, some of the these homes that I've seen pictures of look like floats. I mean, the entire front of the house looks like a float. And they have parade routes where you can drive through these neighborhoods and see these house floats, they're calling them. So it's pretty neat to see how people are getting creative. And, New Orleans is a tough city. They've faced a lot of loss between Katrina and in various natural disasters and such. And they're resilient. So it's kind of fun to see that spirit come through. But yeah, people are missing Mardi Gras this year.
Yeah. Well, when I think of, the United States of America, and I think of the subcultures, what a precious subculture, South Louisiana, Mobile, Alabama, that whole area, South Mississippi, the area that really, like you said, lives out that 6 weeks of Mardi Gras. And I didn't know about that crew, and I would love to see some of those images. So I think it's really important that she just shared, we're grieving this, and that sometimes is what we just need to do, is allow people to have the space to just, she's saying it's not a big deal, but it is, because it's like, it marks the passage of time, it's memories, it's what makes, I don't know, your home or your community unique and special.
Well, and community is so important, for all of us, especially when we're going through tough times. And certainly New Orleans has a very strong sense of community. So yeah, they are feeling it down there. So our hearts and thoughts are with everyone suffering, but certainly our friends in New Orleans and the South down there who are feeling the loss of Mardi Gras, and the people who benefit from, Mardi Gras and what that brings to the city as well.
Well, Haley, I'm thinking we shouldn't call it a spiritual stew. Maybe this week we should call it spiritual jambalaya. Or
we could do that.
Maybe a gumbo.
Spiritual gumbo made with tofu. Gumbo.
Yeah. It has a nice little roux, as they say, their sauce. So what are you making this week?
So this week marks my favorite gospel of the year. They go through different readings throughout the years. I know it's cyclical, but we always have the same gospel reading on Ash Wednesday, and I think about it all the time. And really, the passage that I think of that is often resonating through my mind is, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And it comes from the gospel on Ash Wednesday. It's Matthew 6, 1-6, and then 16 through 18. And in part what it reads is, when you give alms, do not blow a trumpet before you, but when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. And then Matthew goes on to talk about, when you pray, don't pray on the street corner and let everybody know you're praying, go into your quiet room so that really only God knows you're praying, and, to pray in private. And same thing when we fast, don't, make sure when you fast, Matthew talks about, still shower, wash your face, make sure you look presentable so that you aren't grimy, so that people don't know you're fasting, that really we should only be doing these actions, for God, and not so that other people see that we're doing them. And I think about that a lot, because it keeps me in check. And I don't always, like kind of the answer I give myself, but there are times when I think, why am I doing this? Am I doing this, really just to honor God? Am I doing it because I really just genuinely want to be a good person, or try to, or am I doing it for the recognition? Sometimes it's silly things like, I hate anything that has to do with my car. I hate getting the emissions tested. I hate getting gas. I hate everything about it. So on Friday, I had the day off of work, and I went and I got gas in my car, and I took the emissions tested, and I went and got it washed inside out, and I went and put air on the tires. And every single time I did that, I texted my husband to tell him I was doing that. And I was ready for him to write back, what do you want, a pat on the back? Or whatever that saying is, what do you want, a cookie? And certainly those weren't, anything to do to honor God, but I realized I was doing these things because I wanted him to say, good job. And that's really not what we're called to do. So I love this passage because it just reminds me, who do I want to be? I want to be someone who does things for the right reason. And I want to be somebody who does things because I want to do them, and not because I want other people to recognize that I'm doing it. And oftentimes I fall short in that, but it's a constant reminder for me. And And then I sometimes think or justify, my thoughts in the sense, it's inspiring to see other people do good works, and it's inspiring to hear someone tell their story, or to hear, to read about what someone is doing, and that inspires others to do good. So, we can't always do things quietly and not let anyone know, because it can have that domino effect. But I think the key is to not do it for the recognition, but to just know that, ultimately we'll get that recognition, from, the one being that it's most important to get it from.
Right. Yeah. And I think you're so right about the fact we can be inspired or learn from the example of others. That's true in our own families, among our friends. And, I find sometimes that's part of the challenge of being a Christian in the world today, because let's just use an example. Like, it isn't about, we live in a world that's all about numbers and what we accomplish and promoting what has been achieved. And, the Catholic Church does so much in terms of social service. And don't get me wrong, Catholic charities and different groups do promote it, but it's also like there is this underlying message of like, that's what we do because we are Christian, and we don't need to tell the world. So there's like that tension. But you're right, as in terms of ourselves, right? It kind of calls us to be mindful about how we do it and why we do it.
Right. Well, and especially the why we do it.
Yeah.
So for me, I always look forward to Ash Wednesday, because I love hearing it. And it means something different every year. You always, even though you hear the same passage, you're hearing it a year older, or through, you're a different place in your life. So it's a phrase, that I think about really all year long, and then always look forward to it when Ash Wednesday comes along. So I will Zoom into Mass this Wednesday. I don't think I will make it in person, but we can talk at the end with our takeaways about how we're going to receive ashes, because I thought that was kind of a fun takeaway too we can share. So what about you? Do you have a favorite? I don't even know. I didn't even realize, I will be honest with you, that this was my favorite gospel until I started thinking about our spiritual jambalaya for today. And then I thought, yeah, I love this one. I'm ready to hear it.
I think it's great. I know when I read the notes, I thought, I don't think I do have a favorite passage. I do have one that I have spoken about a lot as the one I find the most challenging. And it's also in Matthew's gospel. It's just a chapter later, and it's the chapter on judging others. And just the image that stands out for me is, so it's chapter 7, verse 1-5. And, Christ asks, why do you notice the splinter in your brother's eye, but do not perceive the wooden beam in your own? And how easy it is to find fault in other people. But it's scary to me, because it's like, okay, I can nitpick and I can see that. But the implication here is that it's like way magnified in my own self, and I'm not able to see that. And Mother Teresa was so, prophetic when she said, if you are judging others, you are not able, and I should look at the exact quote, you're essentially not loving them. And really, we're called to love others. And this isn't to say to let everything go and to never say no to a child, or, like everything's okay. But judgment, a place of judgment, it's an easy place to be, and I don't think it's a holy place to be. So Jesus in this passage is really, he calls out hypocrites. And if there's one group in scripture that he is hard on, it is hypocrites, because of what, you're saying, like they're doing things one way and being another. And the left knows what the right's doing, and they're telling a different message. So I think it's an important passage to carry with us.
No, it really is. And you're right. The word hypocrites is used, in Matthew 6 as well. And even that word has such a strong connotation to it. I'm not sure that way back when, these gospels were being written, that they understood how strong that word hypocrite would become, or maybe it's become such a strong word because it is used so powerfully in the Bible. That's probably the case. But you're right. The whole image of a splinter and a wooden beam, that's really powerful too. So he is trying to get his message across here. We are to not be hypocrites. And that might be sound very simple, but oftentimes I think the simplest things can be the hardest ones to follow regularly.
Haley, even as we're talking about hypocrites, I'm realizing how even that word sometimes, like, we judge others and deem them to be a hypocrite. And I can think of a couple instances, and it's like we don't have the full picture of what's going on with that person. So I can think of leaders in the last year who, are acting one way, and people put that label hypocrite on when you might read the story or figure out more information. And it doesn't necessarily justify or make things okay, but it certainly lends insight into where they were coming from. So even me judging someone Christ can do that. I'm going to put that on Christ. He can judge, and I will be judged, and we will be judged. That's what Scripture reveals to us on Judgment Day. We will respond to our Maker. And I don't think that's a bad thing, because we have to atone and account for ourselves. And we know our God is a merciful God and a loving God, which is wonderful, but it's also like he's righteous. And part of righteousness is when, things are understood and accounted for. So,
well, and no, you're right. Just the act of calling someone a hypocrite is judging them. So yeah, we should leave that to Jesus for sure.
He can handle that. So I'll let that. What are your takeaways this week?
So I loved, Anne and I are in this virtual parish where we attend Mass together on Sundays, even though she wakes up early on the West Coast and attends, and I'm on the East Coast, so it's a little later for me. I've had at least 2 cups of coffee by the time we get to church. But
exercise.
But our priest, Father Tom Doyle, is just really amazing. And most priests are, but there's something very human about him, or maybe they're all human, of course, but maybe it's the environment that we're in. Maybe it's the very intimate Mass that we're fortunate to attend. Maybe it's the fact that he has family members and close friends of his that are on the Zoom Mass. But I just love this little parish that we have, and so he asked us this morning, when we were listening and talking about Lent and what this means, who is separated, who has been isolated, and how do we reach them? And I thought that's a great question for me to think about and to pray about, and then to answer and have that be part of my Lenten resolution. And, the first person that came to mind is my grandmother. She'll be 98 in April. She lives by herself. She's in it's not a nursing home. It's more of a staged healthcare environment. But she has her own apartment, and she has been separated and isolated from everybody, from her family, from the other residents, from her friends. Meals are delivered to her. She cannot leave her room. And I was really good during quarantine, when we were all on lockdown last year, about calling her and writing her several times a week, because she doesn't have access to the internet. So there's no email. She doesn't know how to FaceTime, so I can't do that. And I kind of got away with that as our lives started to pick up. And so I'm going to return to that and make sure that she hears from me a lot more often, because she has been separated and she has been isolated, and she has had her first dose of the vaccine. So she's getting there, but it's just been a hard time for her, and I think she's in the last years of her life. And what a really kind of crappy, hopefully it's not her last year, but, to think that she's been alone for the last 11 months is sad, in the sense that there are thousands of people who are just like her in that same situation. And, that's really one of the biggest tragedies of this whole pandemic is, people who are alone. So I will think about who is separated, who's been isolated, certainly my grandmother, but I know there's many others. And so I need to make sure that I do a better job of reaching out during Lent this year.
I am really struck by, yeah, just the way you framed that, Haley, because, Mother Teresa said, when she was asked, can you come to the United States? I need your sisters to come to the US. She said, I can't. Your poverty is too great. And they were like, excuse me? Like, what do you mean? We have social structures. We're a wealthy nation. And she said, your poverty is loneliness, and I can't cure that. I can feed anybody. I can give somebody drink, but I can't give companionship and friendship and, just being there for someone. And so to think of the poverty in that way of so many millions of people, and how do we, so if we can reach out even in, small ways, just even today, like a friend, my former JV coach, he's not coaching with me this year because he's going to stay at home this semester because he has a pre-existing condition. So he's not coaching, but because girls golf started, which is exciting. And he asked me every day, what were their scores? He's still supporting me. And he just picked up the phone today. And I thought that is so nice that, people pick up the phone. And you and I are connected people. We are on the internet. We have, families, friends, things like that. But, to think of people in these situations, I appreciate the reminder. And so I want to take that away too for something to consider this Lent, how I can reach out to, those folks who are in similar situations. Thank you for offering that.
Well, thank you to Father Tom for his wisdom in sharing that with us as well. I also really loved what he shared about receiving ashes. And, I love Ash Wednesday. And it was interesting, thinking about the gospel for this week and also then recognizing, we put ashes on our forehead to mark to everyone that we are, Catholic, that we are marking this day. And that's, I was struck by, is that letting my right hand know what my left hand is doing? Am I walking around, sharing with everyone that I am Catholic, or, yes, I am. And I like that. And then I think I have to reel myself in and kind of check myself. I do like the visual, but I need to make sure that I like it for what it represents and that I don't like it because everyone else is then going to see that I have it on. So again, my own issue. But he had suggested, if you can't make it to Mass, and so I'll share this with people who are listening, to take a paper towel or a piece of paper, but he had said a paper towel, and write down on there the things you love the most. What brings you the most joy? What gives you the most meaning? Your most precious, the most precious things in your life. I would imagine for most people, it's our family, it's our friends, it's, really meaningful work. And then, to offer it up, to burn it, not to burn it to get rid of it, but to burn it, turn it to ash and put it on our foreheads. And as a way of saying that even these most precious things in our lives don't compare ultimately to the gift of eternal life that, that God and Jesus have brought to us and what all that represents and what we're going through as we move towards Easter. And I loved that. I love that whole image of, yes, this is the most precious things. These are the most precious things I have, but it's not even close to, what we're trying to reach and strive for. So we will be doing that as a family this week for Ash Wednesday as well. Yeah.
Well, I wasn't a fan, and I stayed on to offer something afterwards. And you could maybe give the option. I need to write out my sins and my shortcomings. And Lent is purple. It is penitential. It's time to clean up shop. There's a lot that I need to let go of that gets me in the way of God. So that is my sacrifice, my burnt offering, my Holocaust, because that's what the word means. So I loved, of course, what he's trying to convey. But I think for me, I want to approach it I want to be more loving and I want to be closer to God. And these are the things that get in the way. So I'm going in, Haley, with the
I love that.
and putting it out there. So, maybe I'll do half and half.
No, I got to tell you, Anne, I love that. And you know what I love about it is when I'm listening to Father Tom offer up what he's suggesting, and I'm thinking, yes, we're doing this as a family. And I'm thinking, my son is going to think I'm nuts.
Yep. Yeah.
But he could get into that. Like he would really, he loves his theology classes, and he's having such a great experience at his Catholic high school, which I so appreciate, in terms of his own faith formation. So I don't ever want to do anything that would be detrimental to that. But he could get behind. I will offer that up. So thank you for sharing that.
Greg Boyle, who I love, and Father Greg Boyle, he came and spoke at St. Ignatius where I used to teach. And he gave the Ash Wednesday homily. And he said, you know what, kids, this year, do not give up chocolate. Don't give anything up. Do something. Well, you know what happened with a 15-year-old boy or girl? Then they end up not doing anything. Like they just, for some people, you need a spiritual discipline. And for some people, the discipline really is to do the good.
Yeah.
I understand that because some people are scrupulous or so hard on themselves. But I mean, I give up sweets and then I always do something. I used to only give up cookies. Now it's full on sweets, Haley. It is painful. It's hard. And I'm like, bring it. And I only did it because we talked earlier about community. A friend at work, she told me she was doing it. And so we check in with each other, and it makes it a lot better that somebody else is doing it, because for me, I want that spiritual discipline. And I'm not trying to criticize Father Boyle. I think his point was don't get just lost in that. But I think developmentally for some young people, there's a time and a place for all of it.
Absolutely. So, no, and I agree with both of those. You're right. There's nothing wrong with what he's suggesting as well. I totally get it. But yeah.
So let us know what your family decides, what they opt to, if you do that.
I will.
I'm going to, so I've talked about my 21 minutes of sustained silent reading. I'm going to do 4 minutes of prayer in the morning. Now that I really don't know in the morning how long I pray. I think maybe a minute, maybe, some mornings it's longer, but I'm going to be curious to see about my 4-minute prayer. And it's 1 minute for each letter in the word Lent. So the acronym Lent, and the L is for light. And so I just want to shed light on the day, or I just love the idea of praying with light and bringing the light in. So, Jesus says, I'm the light of the world. So L for light. E is for ego or error. So where I've really let me get in the way, or, things I've said that may have been inconsiderate, disrespectful or whatnot. N is for nature. So I want to spend a minute trying to think about what I did with nature. I don't know, think about the spaces I've been and thank God for that creation. And then T is for trust. And I'm going to just give a minute to maybe just put myself in a place where I ask God to be willing to trust God. I think that means listening to God. So it's going to be my 4-minute prayer.
I love that, Anne. And I hope you'll share that with the greater audience too. I know you talked about blogging about it, so I hope you do, because I think this could catch on. Because even with the trust, the trust could just be, that last minute listening and trusting that he's going to share with you, what you need to do on the first 3. So that's awesome. We may borrow that in our house too. Maybe not all 3 of us who are here, but I will certainly for sure. And you're right, 4 minutes doesn't sound very long, but it's a long time.
Possible, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. What a fun week. Again, there's a lot going on even in this very short month. And very cold month of February. I know that there are a number of places in this country that are really experiencing extraordinarily cold weather. So we hope everyone stays warm. We hope everyone is able to, celebrate Ash Wednesday in a way that is meaningful to them. Again, Anne's reminder that we are not supposed to eat meat. Thank you again for that. I would have gotten to that eventually. And, I look forward to next week and seeing how the week went and where we are. And hopefully, just a few days after Ash Wednesday and Lent starts, we will still be not eating desserts. We won't have broken Lent yet.
Yeah.
Oh, so here's my quick question before we end.
I think I know what you're going to ask.
You are. I'm sure you do. So, are you a straight through?
Yes.
Okay. No
know.
cheating on Fridays.
I know. Yeah, the Sunday, because technically speaking, the 40
that's
days,
right. Sundays. That's right. Sundays.
Okay, I knew what you meant. Technically speaking, the 40 days of Lent does not include Sundays, because Sundays are days of celebration. So
right, and I believe it actually ends on Holy Thursday.
It
right?
Does, yeah, with the Triduum. So yeah.
Okay, so we're like, you're with us. We're like the 48 days of Lent or whatever it turns out to be. Okay.
I don't know though. I just break. If I break it on Sunday, I break it. I don't know. I should be 0-1, white, black. I'm not. I don't know.
This is where we need Jesus. We need him to answer our question.
We will be judged.
Hopefully not for eating cookies on Sunday.
Right.
Although, if that's the worst, sin yeah,
you're right.
That's the worst thing in our life. We're pretty good. So have a great week. And I look forward to next week continuing this conversation.
Thanks so much. Thanks to our listeners for listening.